All right, good evening, everybody. Hey, tonight is about retelling war stories, not for the sake of just retelling them. It's about hearing from the men who lived through the moments that shaped them and shaped all of us. There's a lot of lessons learned that come from the Battle of Mogadishu, and we'll dive into those in those episodes, and we'll maybe even dive into how they affected future generations. On October 3rd, 1993, Task Force Ranger went into Mogadishu on what was supposed to be a 1 hour mission. Instead, it turned into an 18-hour fight for survival after two Blackhawks were shot down. By the time the sun rose the next day, 18 Americans had been killed, more than 70 wounded, and hundreds of Somalis lay dead or injured. It was one of the bloodiest urban battles since Vietnam, and its impact has echoed through the Regiment and our nation ever since. The questions we're going to ask tonight aren't just about the battle itself, but it's about brotherhood, leadership, resilience, and how their experience has stayed with these Rangers as men, fathers, and leaders. We're honored to have them with us tonight, and we're excited to share this conversation with you. Hey, before I go around and let everybody introduce themselves, first, I just want to tell you four gentlemen, thank you for taking the time. I know that you guys get asked about this all the time, and many of you have given up your time to even be on Legend of the 75th as a podcast guest. And I know that time is valuable. It's a resource that we can't replicate, we can't make more of. So I just really, really, truly want to thank you. But before we dive into that, I also want to say, hey, if you have not got a chance, please go to Three Rangers, their website, and register for the Moog Mile. It's a new design shirt this year. I think it's pretty awesome, but that's because Corey designed it, so I think it's pretty amazing. But there's going to be events going on all over the nation with a really big one happening down in Columbus, Georgia. If you can make it out to that, that would be fantastic. And it'll be on 3 October. So there's a link. There's we can do the virtual, we can do them in person. Your registration is basically you ordering a t-shirt, and I think it's pretty slick. So head on over there and make sure you get yourself a t-shirt if you haven't had a chance to already, and encourage all of your Ranger buddies to do it, because Three Rangers Foundation is truly an amazing organization that is helping a lot of Rangers currently that are serving, ones that are out with their mentorship programs, their Ranger for Life programs. It's an organization that everybody on here, it's near and dear to their heart. So, all right, enough of Mike Burke talking. Talked way too much already. Jeff, please, if you would, just in case somebody hasn't heard of the Jeff Struker, please just take a moment to introduce yourself. And
then hey guys, I'm Jeff Struker. I live in Columbus, Georgia. Back in '93, I was a squad leader in 3rd Platoon in Somalia, which means I was on the ground, and my boss is on this call tonight in this group meeting. He, at the time, Lieutenant Larry Moores. So it's great to be with you. Thanks for the invite, Mike.
Thank you. All right, Kenny, you want to go next?
He forgot to say, and I'm a badass.
No.
He forgot to put that in there.
Because
he won't say it, so I'll just say it for him. Let's see. So the other Larry Perino is my PL, and I was on the assault force. So I came in on helicopters on Chalk 3, Super 6 was our bird. So Kenny Thomas, and I'm up in Ohio now, the north, which is for a southern boy, it's a whole different. Like I have to. Seriously, I had to watch the Buckeyes on TV last night. I had to watch the Browns play today. I was like, it's weird, and people are. It's cold. It's all right. The leaves are already falling, and it's already cold.
Yeah. No, thank you. That's why I live in the South.
Yeah.
Larry Perino, you wanna go get next?
Sure. Larry Perino. During that time, my boss Larry Moores is also on the call. Never mind. No, but during that period, I was a platoon leader for 1st Platoon, and I was in the lead Ranger Chalk Super 6-4, flown by Mike Durant and his crew. And no, I'm here in Florida. Leaves are falling. It was 90 here today, and humid. Just send a little home up your way, Kenny.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to be here. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, thank you. All right, and then the man, the myth, the legend himself, Larry Moores. Please introduce yourself.
And I usually get to go last, so I'm glad we got to keep this in a good structure. I'm Larry Morris. I was the third platoon leader in B Company. Honored to lead a great bunch of warfighters. We were the ground reaction force. Spent a lot of time in the city on a regular basis, so we had pretty good eyes and ears around what parts of the city were good and bad, and how we could maneuver, which paid good dividends on the 3rd and 4th of October.
And he also fought with me in the Philippines when we were fighting
right.
dysentery and everything.
I was on the long walk in the Philippines.
What an amazing event that was.
That was a great trip as well. Hopefully, we'll be able to talk about that for a couple minutes during our session tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about Ranger history. So, all right, gentlemen. Well, what I wanted to, and I kind of sent out in the email beforehand, I just want to, kind of shape things as we start to talk about, the events that transpired on the 3rd of October. When we talk about the days leading into and the hours before that mission, and a lot of people don't know, there was a lot of missions that had actually happened before that. So getting spun up for a mission, it wasn't necessarily a big deal. I'd love for, you guys just to kind of talk about what was the mood like, what was it like leading up to this mission? And anybody can go.
Yeah, who's going to jump in first?
I would say, we did 6 missions. That's right, Mike. We did 6 missions prior to that. When we arrived towards the end of August of that month, and I would not say a sense of complacency, but it was a lot of ways we called it. It was almost like Groundhog Day in a lot of ways, because it was just a lot of get up, repeat. You do overflights. We would train, or we'd get spun up. We'd get spun up or spun down to launch. And so, but it actually kind of, as a, at least for the folks on the assault force. Now, I tell you what, on 3rd platoon and the ground folks, they were always busy, because they were always, not just ready to fight or go grab somebody, but they were always, they were our escorts. They had to get supplies. They were making runs all over the city. And what Larry Morris said earlier was absolutely right. So theirs probably had a little bit more excitement from day to day compared to us. But it was, what do we call it? Chasing Elvis. A lot of times chasing Elvis, because, what we find is manhunting is pretty hard. Let's put it that way.
Well, wasn't it like, Larry, was it like, I think I heard Dito tell me one time that y'all had done like 44 sorties into town, all in all, like before the 3rd came around. Do you think it was that many?
Larry, which Larry?
Who's asking Larry P?
The boss.
You.
The guy was in charge of everybody, Larry Morris. Larry.
Yeah, it was a pretty constant amount of runs, and we split the elements. So there was always opportunities for different people to go. We would escort folks to the embassy. We would go on runs to the east side of the town, west side. We would do security for the resupply convoys, whatever it might have been. So it was always somebody on the roads, it seemed. We did some rehearsal missions with 214 from 10th Mountain. Mm-hmm. We would actually link up with them prior, which I think helped as well, prior to the 3rd of October, having some familiarity with an element that we'd end up meeting on the street. So I think all of that stuff and understanding which parts of the city were more or less receptive to us helped us later on.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that specific thing. Did you guys notice, as the longer you guys were there, executing missions, doing these sorties, and all kinds of resupply missions and everything, that there was growing kind of tension and kind of a buildup by the locals, in the area, and the militia fighters and everything?
I'll jump in on this one. This is my experience just from being the guy on the Humvees. I think there were parts of town that were getting progressively more violent. Okay. If you were to take the city of Mogadishu and divide it into like 7 sections, not equal in size or people, but there were about 7 different parts of town controlled by 7 different warlords. 5 of those 7 were pretty friendly to the United Nations and to us. So when we were in their part of town, it was very benign. One of them was kind of, hey, we'll fight you if you're in our neighborhood, but we don't really care that much. And then you have the ID'd part of town. And the ID'd part of town, the Bakara Market, Black Sea area of town, and then this other area, yeah, that was progressively becoming more and more violent. You could tell just by driving down the streets, the look on people's faces, the hostility, in the doorways. That was happening the longer that we were in there. And I don't know if you guys heard this, but I had one or two Somalis basically say to me, while the U.S. Marines were here, we tried to watch our P's and Q's. But when the Marines left and you guys pulled the Spectre gunships out, now we do whatever we want to do.
That was the same thing that I've heard. I know that they did the Spectre gunships attacks, which happened I think either June or July before we got there. That about flipped that city on its head as far as tolerance towards UN forces or U.S. forces specifically. I do want to go one thing, and I remember it was a pretty vivid memory. Is one night General Garrison wanted to talk to all the platoon leaders, all the lieutenants, and it was kind of interesting. So you got a chance to talk to the JSOC commander, right? And I think it was kind of funny because he had his hat rocked back on his head, smoke with a cigar in his mouth, UDT shorts, and a brown t-shirt. And he's sitting there talking to us, and we're on this map. And I asked him a question. It was about the Bakara market, and he looked, and he was kind of prophetic because this was Larry. Where were we there? Probably maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks.
Yeah, week 10 days. Yeah.
Something like that. And I asked him, something about it. And he said, what about the Bakara market? He goes, if we go anywhere near there, it's got to be the intel's got to be really solid because I know when we go in there, we're going to get in a gunfight. That's what he said.
Boom.
That's what he said. I mean, very prophetic.
Yeah. Well, and that's what ended up happening. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that, it's one question I've always really kind of wanted to ask is that, tension's kind of building now. Did that translate at all in the preparedness, and what people were thinking about this mission, especially with what you just said, Larry, that you guys knew you guys were going to be going, downtown, you got convoy operations, you got the helicopters, where they're going and anything. Did that kind of set the tone that this might be a little bit different, and the reason I'm asking is because we've all had those missions where we know it's going to be different. Sometimes it doesn't, and then sometimes, we know, and then sure as heck it happens, So I'm just asking, was there any kind of indicators, or did we just think that this was going to be just another in and out?
I'll start on this one. I don't think there was any indicators leading up to the 3rd and 4th. The prior missions and all of our interactions in the city, we had some pretty decent firefights prior to that, but we expected that as well. We knew we weren't going to operate within the boundaries of their city untouched, because that's what brought us there in the first place.
Right.
So, knowing that as we were conducting operations or doing our day-to-day missions in and around the city, there was always that anxiety that something could happen. It didn't always happen, but we knew that if there was a gunfight, we'd be ready, and we always took the appropriate force whenever we were going out, whether it was a rehearsal or a mission escort, trip to the embassy, whatever it might have been.
Yeah. Anybody else got some thoughts on that?
I'll throw in one more, because I'd like to know the other guys' perspectives on it, but there's two things that stand out to me. So a couple weeks before the 3rd of October, a 101st helicopter gets shot down, and we see pictures that, because we have AFN, we could see, some TV. So we saw newscasts of it dragging bodies of U.S. service members through the streets.
And this was in Somalia as well?
Yeah. This was 2 weeks before the fight.
2 weeks.
No kidding. I never heard about this. Okay.
Absolutely. And so don't think that when we saw 6-1, because that flashed through my mind immediately when 6-1 starts going, when it goes down, it just did. But then there was a second one a lot of times we would fly south of the city to shoot, to continue training. And one time we were doing some training, I think linked up with you guys, Larry, and we were just out there. I think they were doing some demo training, but it doesn't matter. On the flight back, they did a CSAR rehearsal, a SAR rehearsal. So they had, and once again, foretelling of something, I don't know, but the aircraft that went down, that landed, that we had to secure was Super 6-1.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
It was Super 6-1. Yeah. And we did that, just south of the city. But those are the couple things. That was the only time we'd ever rehearsed going through that kind of a drill, a SAR drill. Maybe it was because of the 101st, that helicopter getting shut down. Maybe it was because of that. I don't know. But those are just something that just kind of stood out to me.
Yeah, well, and you talked about the 101st. You said 101st, correct? Helicopter that went down, and you saw them, dragging the bodies out. So, when I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but we're talking about it. So when Super 6-1 went down, it wasn't just that the aircraft went down. This was also, you guys had seen the images, you'd seen the news and everything else that, hey, the same thing could potentially happen. And obviously the gunfire that you guys were in at the time too, it kind of accelerated that, but I'd never heard that before. So that's a really, really important perspective, I think, to share with everybody.
Yeah, guys, I don't want to speak for everybody else, but I assumed on the 3rd and 4th of October, this is going to be a fight. Didn't know how bad it's going to be a fight, but on a lot of targets that the vehicles rolled in on, we got into a fight. I assumed that it was going to be a fight already, and the violence was growing in Somalia. And even on some resupply missions, when I'm on a U.S. logistics base, we're getting hit while I'm at the base, and I'm engaging the enemy out there. So it didn't surprise me when the first rounds went over our head on target. What surprised me was how many rounds and how long that lasted. Like in the course of the fight, I said, at some point they have to run out of ammunition. There's no humanly way possible they can keep up this volume of fire. And it did keep up. So I assumed the fight before we ever turned the engines on the Humvees.
Wow. All right.
And that was a different mission that day as well. So all the prior missions leading up to the 3rd and 4th, the assault element had gone in by helo and they had come out by helo.
Yeah.
So there was always a location LZ nearby that they would get to and come back. On the 3rd, that was the first time that they were going in on the helo. And because of the density of the area around the target buildings, they were not expected to come back out by helo. So it was a different construct just based on the density and the amount of people in that section of Bakara Market.
Yeah, the only other outlier is when we got radio ID'd, and that was just
vehicles.
Yeah, that was just vehicles.
Okay.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, we did a hit on a site that was an entire vehicle in, vehicle out hit. The rest of them were usually a combination of vehicles and aircraft.
But this one was different because the main assault force that was setting up the blocking positions, hitting the target building, was going to exfil, not on the helos, but was going to exfil on the convoy that was en route to them.
Right.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, we had 24 people that we needed to pull out too.
Yeah, and the math formula was daytime and Bakara Market, and there's already an escalation in violence. Yeah, this is going to be a fight. Who knows what kind of fight, how much of a fight, but yeah, this is going to be a fight.
Was this the first daylight mission you guys had done?
No. The hit on Osman Auto was daylight, right?
Yes, his garage, and when we got him.
Yeah.
So I think it was
of the 6 prior missions, 3 had been daylight and 3 had been nighttime. So they had alternated. They weren't alternated, but there had been daylight missions. We did one off in the east of the city it was a police general's house that we hit way over on the east. That was a daylight raid as well.
Okay, but this was the first one that was kind of really in the city proper,
in the Black Sea area, the Bakara Market.
Okay, all right, okay, that makes sense. I think that that kind of indicates what was gonna happen, and I think Jeff, you had in your perspective that was good too. So